morning, Thinker. Good morning, Mulan. Thank you for joining. Okay, let's get to it. I'm excited. So this morning I'm going to stay up next to the ears. We're going to work on the ears. Aha! Got to turn that mic on. That's important. I was hearing I was saying all kinds of stuff. Thanks, guys. So, good morning. Good morning. Today is March 22nd, 2023. Wednesday. Wednesday already. Boy, the week goes by so quickly. So what I was saying was I was looking at the stream, or at least, the part I'm seeing on it, where, I see the stream before it goes out. And I don't really like the quality of it. I'm going to see if I can up the quality. I tried this morning, but the programs that I'm using are only 1080p. And there's so much detail here in the tiger's head that I want you guys to experience. So I'm going to see later today if I can do something to try and stream in 4K. That would be nice. That would be really nice, because I don't think it's grabbing the details, unfortunately. I mean, I have a really nice camera from Canon, but Canon, if you use more than one camera from Canon, they charge you for the software. It's like $5 a month to use the software so you can stream multiple cameras into your computer at once. But the quality is absolutely terrible. Anyway, it could be fixed by me just moving my camera closer, but I will try that on my own time. Okay, we need to make the ears a little bit larger, and that starts with some dark color, so we'll start there. Burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of alizarin permanent. And I got something really close to black. Hope you guys are doing well this morning. Ulan, I had a chance to look at your Instagram yesterday, and I was really blown away. I loved your drawings. Very, very good. There's the cat that I saw in there. There's a couple birds. The fox that you use as your avatar for YouTube is absolutely fantastic. I love that. There's a couple of them. There's a few of them that I would say I could tell that there's kind of a lack of understanding of the form. Meaning that you kind of you have the 2D drawing, but that understanding of how it flows through space, which is, one of the hardest things to kind of grasp, is missing in a couple of them. But that kind of comes with time. But I love the texture. The texture is fantastic. Very nice. And honestly, I really think that your work could be up for sale, local galleries, things like that. And I remember going into lots of galleries, and they'll have paintings on the walls, and then they'll have either prints from artists, or they'll do like greeting cards and things like that. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. I think you could make a lot of people happy with your work. So great job. Now we just need to get Thinker to show his work. Or maybe you are. I don't think you are. I don't think you put it up, but Maybe you've told me and I've forgotten. If so, I apologize. So I can barely see where I covered up the black paint on the tiger. It actually, it's oh so subtle, but the paint that I had on here before, where I initially, did the first layer, then I covered up with the background, it has a thickness to it. And that thickness will stay there and it'll reflect these little edges. Although in this one, I do not see that. So I'm pretty sure that the top of the ear is here. Getting that drawing back. This is kind of part of the game. Even though we use all the digital means to help us out with the drawing, it's throughout the painting process, you will cover up some of that drawing, kind of destroy some of the drawing, and then have to, work to get it back. That's good. We're just training our drawing skills that way. Yeah. His work is fabulous. I saw on Instagram. Oh, okay. I need to check out Instagram. That's okay. I do remember now. I did critique your work on Instagram a while back. Sorry. I've forgotten. I'm gonna have to refresh my memory on your art. I'll look again. I just started reposting on Instagram. Trying to add that back into my workflow throughout the day. Boy, just adding that black into the ears has really kind of brought those guys out tremendously. It's almost, it's an outline, but that's part of what we're seeing here in the image. Ula Ulan is like Ulas. I hope I wasn't saying it wrong. Your name the whole time. Yeah, I keep saying Ulan. I'll add in the N. Ulan Tidy? Oh wow, I'm sorry. I'm not even gonna try. I apologize. I feel bad. Ula's art. Ula. I like Ula. That sounds good. Hopefully that's accurate. Okay, where to go with these ears? I really like the left ear because we bring that splash of sunlight up there. I'm gonna move to my lighter brush, my second brush, and make up my lighter color, which is gonna be this really bright white up there. I'm just gonna start with that. I'm gonna start with a super bright color. We're gonna start with white. I'm gonna put a big chunk of it right here. It does have a lot of yellow into it, but I want, just plain yellow and white is usually way too intense for anything I see. So I'm gonna add a little bit of transparent earth orange in it to kind of calm it down some. And then I'll drag some of that up here. Begin to darken it up, maybe add some red. And then we'll get some, um, bring the intensity down as we go this way. Yeah, sometimes I kind of like mixing paint this way where you start with a color and then you move it out and into several different kind of areas into, you know, white, yellow, a bit of orange, a bit of saturated burnt umber, and then kind of move it around that way. Near enough. Getting closer to... Okay. Is the glaze you did yesterday dry or for today's painting? You know, I don't know. I was kind of all over the place, wasn't I? Let me pick out one place. Okay, the last thing that I did was this side of the bridge of the nose. To darken that up. Well, you know what? It's pretty dry, yeah. It goes really quickly. When I look at, let's see, this solvent-free gel by Gamblin, I believe it has an alkyd in it. I'm trying to read on it. Most of what's on it is in a different language. Yeah, it doesn't actually give me the makeup of it. It tells me how to use it, but it doesn't say. I think it may have an alkyd in it. But I do have this one as well. So this is, well, maybe it doesn't because they have a Galkyd gel. So it's possible to use this one as well. This does contain a petroleum distillate, so it is not non-toxic. But you could use that. And it would probably drive a bit faster if you work really thick. Do I ever need to use a maul stick? Yes. Let me show you my maul stick. The only time I need to use a maul stick is when I can't put my hand down in some position, like either my pinky somewhere where the paint isn't wet or as I just painted. Now I have a very high-tech maul stick. This is a stick from blinds, like wooden blinds that, you know, that's the stick that you would turn to open them up or close them. I think this is in one of the apartments that we were renting, and it wasn't being used. It was like behind like in a closet somewhere. I can't remember where I got it, but it's just a dowel rod that's thick enough that it doesn't bend and light enough so that I can easily hold it with my left hand, put it on the top of my canvas, and just really get in there and use it that way. So it's actually really nice. I'm going to keep that close just in case. You know, very low tech on that one. The one thing that I've really tried to do over the years, because I've, you know, after buying, you know, probably tens of thousands of dollars with supplies in my life, I've bought too many art supplies. I've realized that most of the stuff that they sell in art stores you can get either in hardware stores or you know, random places everywhere for a third, you know, a half or a third of the price. And they work just as well. For example, newsprint paper. Yeah, dark earth tones dry really fast, yeah. But most dark tones dry really fast. As long as they're, you know, when you get into the, well, I would say, no, I'm not going to say semi-transparent or transparent, because burnt umber is actually semi-transparent, and it still dries really fast. So, you know, one thing that I've used a lot to improve my drawing is newsprint paper. It's great for charcoal drawing, for just doing, you know, thousands of drawings, just practicing, because it's, you know, it's the cheapest paper you can buy. But if you go to the art store, they're going to charge you $20 for a pad of 50 of the smooth newsprint, which I like the smooth newsprint. And then one day I said, you know what? I remember, when I was really young, I worked at a store. I think it was Michael's or something like it. And we would wrap up fragile stuff in a newsprint paper. And I remember it being very smooth. I was like, well, I bet you there's some kind of company that sells that in bulk. And I ended up getting like 2,000 sheets of newsprint paper in bulk shipped to me from a company in New York for $50. And I still have it. I still have this huge, it's like 50 pounds of paper. It's ridiculous. Like, I don't need to buy newsprint paper ever again. And now Blick actually sells like huge packs, like Dick Blick online sells huge packs of newsprint paper for really cheap. So something to look into. If you ever feel like, oh, I need to get this at the art store. There's well, not obviously. There's certain things that you don't want to buy anywhere else, like your brushes for oil paint. I would say, art store for that. The oil paint themselves, you go to an art store. Brush washers for artists, things like that. The mediums. There's things that you have to buy there, but a lot of other things, it's, it doesn't really... It's not really cost effective, honestly. So one thing I really liked from the digital version of this was all the hairs that I was able to come up with in the ears. This is a older tiger, and oh darn, I get my watch set incorrectly. It's buzzing at me at the wrong time. So the one thing I like was how the older tiger had all kinds of hair coming out of his ears. So I want to make sure that I capture that well. And usually when I paint, how many brushes at time do you keep in your soaking bath? Right now I have 6, 7, 8, but I'm only using 2 of them continuously. It's just what I've built up from from this tiger. Yeah, things that I've used. And I have another painting going right now. And I use actually the same brushes on both of them right now. It depends. I'll keep an eye on them. Sometimes if I have, brushes in my, soaking brush bath or the oil bath or whatever, they're just sitting in there and I know that I'm not going to be using them anytime soon, I'll go ahead and clean them. But literally through the entire digital version of doing this tiger, from the beginning of traditional to digital, and until I started this oil painting, I had brushes in that bath just sitting there. And when I started back up, it was just like, it was just like the day I left them. There's a few in there I cleaned because they were just, I wasn't going to use them for this painting, so. But I found if you start getting too much in there, especially with the can that I have, it has a spring on the top to hold the... Here, let me just show it to you real quick. It's kind of big and heavy though. So this guy, hopefully you can see that. Yeah, it's got a big spring. I know it's blurry, but I think you can tell what's going on. It's got a big spring holding those brushes. Those springs are a little bit finicky. Like you'll put one brush in and another brush will pop out. So you have to kind of like be careful with them. And if you get too many brushes in that spring, it just doesn't want to hold anything. But the spring is actually really important because it'll keep your brushes off of the bottom of the brush washer. Now most brush washers will have this separator. It's kind of like a metal piece that has holes in it so that when you actually wash your brushes in it, all the paint sediment will go through those holes and go to the bottom. But only some will kind of stay on that. It's almost like a colander separator. But the thing I just showed you, it is a brush washer, but I don't wash my brushes in it. All the brushes that go into that have most of the paint cleaned out of them. And I use this brush washer, which is, kind of like the same thing, just a lot smaller. And I use it. It's got a lot of dirty oil in it, but it's got enough oil to clean out most of the paint in the brush. And my paper towel will take out the rest. And what goes into my bigger brush washer, which is just a soak, is just really clean brushes. And I do that because that brush washer is so large that it would cost me a lot to continually replace the oil in there. So I try and keep that oil clean. It's not going to dry anytime soon. And I did a video about this particular brush washer, like where to get it from. You'd have to look at the video on YouTube, or find it. It's one of my 3-Minute Thursdays. Oh, I know which one it is. It's the one that says, 1,000 subscribers on it. I talk about this brush washer. I noticed the finickiness of the spring. I used electric tape around the handle of the brush, and they seem to stick in the spring a lot better. Oh yeah, that would work. I was thinking about dipping the whole spring in this, like a rubber coating, but I didn't want to get into all that. I know that you can buy some kind of rubber coating that, you can heat up, and you dip anything in it, it'll give like this really thin coating of rubber. And I was like, well, that would provide enough friction to hold these brushes a lot better. But then I was thinking, no, all that work, I'll take the extra 2 or 3 seconds to carefully put each brush in there. But the tape is a good idea. Okay, I'm working in just a bunch of grays now. For this top left ear, there's just a lot of gray hairs here. And I want to get the values correct because it really describes the form of that ear, how it's got a cone shape, and they flow into that cone. Actually, I need to get the angle of some of these hairs right. I don't think I have the right angle. Now, normally when I paint hair, I don't go so deep into each, hair follicle. There's kind of I'm looking at a lot of paintings that I've done in the past, and there's kind of a generalization of hair in some places. But if I wanted to improve, one of the things that I'm noticing is I could paint a lot more hair and work on generalizing it like John Singer Sargent has done. Okay. Actually, an artist I could look at for that would be Robert Liberace. I really like the way he paints. And he has this tutorial. I think you can get it on DVD of all things. Or maybe it is digital now. It's kind of still old school of an artist. Must paint from life, not from photo kind of thing. If I can convince him to go digital and use digital. Maybe he has. Maybe he's realized it. But he did this online not online tutorial, but a tutorial that you can buy from his website of painting an old man and with a beard, and looking at how he painted a beard would be very helpful. I like what Richard Schmidt said once, I believe in his book Alla Prima. When you talk about generalizing certain shapes, like John Singer Sargent had done, kind of melding similar things all into one. It's possible in a lot of ways, but when there's certain subject matter it would just not work for. And I think his example was a zebra. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't generalize a zebra into gray. You have to paint separate black and white stripes. And I keep thinking about that when we're working on this tiger. But definitely the individual hairs that I'm doing could be generalized a little bit better. It's a weak spot that I could improve upon. Hello, sir. Envy on 6. Welcome to the stream. So I'm just looking at all the different values and colors in this ear and trying to reproduce the digital painting we worked up. But at the same time, I mean, the most important part of this is getting the form of it correct. So understanding how the ear is wrapping around. And if well, I have cats. Maybe you guys have cats. I love cats. Um, just saying. And their ear is this wonderful cone shape. And from what I'm looking at here, the ears are pointed forward for the most part. And I'm thinking this could be part of the cone that I'm working on right now, like the outside. But understanding, like kind of closing your eyes and understanding that, it flows down into this larger hole in some way. How that works. Understanding it more on a physical level than a visual level is really important. How does it flow in space? Because for the most part, you can, just with flat drawing alone, you can get pretty close. But describing the subtleties of form will take will have a necessity for shading. Shading will have to happen. And this is kind of, a gray area, pun intended, where there's, in drawing, there's a definite line, I could see the edge of this tiger's head and the hairs and the eyes and things like that. And understand that it starts and stops here. And then if I don't get that line correct, I can objectively look at it, even with the digital means like I showed you, to get an understanding of where it stops and starts. And understand that, oh, I'm off by this much. But when you're talking about shading... Oh, you have a cat too. Wonderful. See, I'm thinking a lot about the cat drawing that you did, Ula. It was a tabby cat. I have a tabby cat too. I think the tabby that you did was a long-haired tabby. And the drawing is good. What it lacks is that understanding of form. It's more flat than anything. It has some flatness to it. So I would have to really look at, the photo that you went off of, or maybe you didn't go off the photo. Maybe you went on, out of your head. That would be even more fantastic. But understanding the form and always kind of keeping that in mind. Wow, that value is way too bright right there. Always keeping that in mind as you're painting and drawing. Actually, I would consider what you do, Ula, paintings. Color pencil paintings. I think they're so good. It's like, I'd like to give them more than just this idea of drawing. Not to denigrate drawing, but yeah. You're going above and beyond with those. It's really nice. So how do we get a better understanding of form? Practice, number one. I mean, that's going to always be the answer to getting better at anything. Just practice. But specifically, you simplify first. So what is the most simple form that you can practice on with? For most people, that is a cube. Doesn't have to be a perfect square cube. No, this one was in color. The one that I'm talking about, I could tell that it was a yellowish tabby color. Maybe you do have one that is... Maybe it wasn't a tabby cat at all. There was a kind of a yellowish orange, maybe, or yellow color of a long-haired cat. I'll have to point it out directly on your Instagram. Sorry. But the best way to practice getting this understanding of form, which is so important, is to simplify the forms that you practice with first. And yeah, it could, potentially you could be bored out of your head by doing this. But it's the quickest way to get to a deeper understanding of form. Now, there's a course online called drawabox.com, which is fantastic. I've gone through most of that course myself, and not only will it give you a wonderful understanding of form, but it'll also give you a wonderful understanding of perspective, which is kind of the other side of that coin. Excuse me, the other side of that coin. Perspective. Because also to understand form, there has to be some understanding of perspective as well. And if you're interested in that, it's completely free. Just go online, check it out. Drawabox.com. Lots of drawing. But there's a few things, if you decide to do that, there's a few things that I would suggest that you do differently than what they have. So throughout that course, they urge you to use like a fine liner, a pen liner with a copy paper. I love the idea of like just regular printer paper, just super cheap printer paper, and doing your practices on that. That way you can lower the cost and get a lot of practice in. But in my opinion, I think if you use, a graphite pencil and whatever paper you use, I think it'll be fine. My cat is orange-ish, long hair. I have done her with colored pencils and also in watercolors. Oh, cool. It might have been her. I am not liking the colors that I'm pulling out right now. I want to try and get this right. I keep going for my yellow and red together. Hansa Yellow Medium and Naphthol Scarlet. But I don't think that is working. Let's see. Getting there. I need to really up the intensity over here. And I'm getting back into opaque paint for these really intense areas where the sunlight is hitting. Now, when I say opaque paint, I mean as opaque as I can get using this semi-transparent and transparent colors that I have on my palette. Now, the mistake that I made here was not putting these super bright colors down within the first layer. Hey, good morning, Ashton. Thanks for joining. It would have been a lot better if I had put down these areas where the sunlight is hitting the tiger first and made them even brighter than they are with that first layer. That would have given me a perfect kind of foundation for putting very, very high saturated color over them in glazes. The way to get the most intense color in oil paint is to have like a white or very bright underlayer, wait for it to dry, and then glaze over it with an intense color, like right out of the tube, transparent color. You'll get these super intense, very bright colors that way. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if I had put these lighter colors down, which I have already, I mean, I can still go over with more layers of glazes and still reach that. I still have that ability. I have an exam this morning, so I can't stay, but wanted to just stop by and say hey at least. Oh, I appreciate that. Hey. We said hey. Hey. It reminds me of a really bad joke. But it's something about like what do cows say when they greet people, or horses? One of those two. They say hey. Sorry. It was terrible. Hope you make some good progress and everyone has a good day. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, sun today. I think it's supposed to be sunny here too. In the area of lots of rain. Have a wonderful day, Ashton. Okay, looking at that ear. Okay, the one thing I do notice is I need to thicken up the base of the ear. I believe the drawing on that is off still, so I'm going to change that. So going back to form, understanding form. Ula, I think you have a, the style that you use, or the method, rather than style. I'll say method because styles can change. But the method that you have right now is perfect for getting, a better understanding of form within your paintings. Because you're kind of doing something exactly like I'm doing. Yeah, you are. You're doing, I'm doing a bunch of smaller lines, and you do the same, where it's very linear as you go across the form. And what that allows you to do is to determine which way you want the strokes to go based on the form. And you have really two choices there. You can go with the form or against the form. And I tend to always want to choose what describes the form the best. In some instances on this painting, I change that up because I want to get, I can't go across the form on these hairs because the hair is going in a certain way. So there's some instances where you can't do that. But what I found is using the same method where, if I'm painting a figure or a smooth block or a sphere or anything, if I describe the form as I'm painting, I try and act like an ant and go over the top of the nose, how it curves and then goes down and then over the cheek, these kind of things. It really helps you get an understanding of how the form moves through space. you're thinking like a sculptor. And the more you do it, the more it comes naturally. Where you can look at a photo, even though maybe it's hard to understand, and pretty much get a deeper understanding of, how the form flows in space. I hope that helps. You know what? Actually, we've talked about it a lot with this forehead. About, does it feel like it goes back into space? And there's no subjective or objective measurement of that. It's really a subjective thing. Where on the digital version, I'm still not sure which one feels like it goes back in space more than the other. But trying to reach that feeling. Does the body of the bird feel round? Actually, there's one part within drawbox.com where he's doing like texture on a form, and the difference between I forget what you call that, the implicit and the explicit idea of form, where and there's some birds that you've done, like hairs on this tiger, feathers on a bird, where there's an explicit texture that happens, where you look at it and you go, okay, well, the scales on a fish have this kind of half moon shape, this detailed half moon shape throughout the whole body of the fish. And that's the explicit idea. And you can draw that exactly. Be very explicit with it. But the implicit idea is the combination of all those scales making an arc that describes the body of the fish. And for some birds, the way the feathers fit together, it's kind of the same. Where there's this kind of implicit idea of how the feathers make the form. And having an understanding between those two, I think, is important. Something that maybe I need to look at a bit more, because I'm doing a lot of explicit rendering here. I'm explicitly rendering the hairs rather than, in the most part, I'm trying to implicitly use those renderings to describe the shape of the head at the same time. All right, I'm going to step back from the painting and look at that ear. I want that to be right. Yeah, I think that's pretty good for right now on the ear. Let's move on to the next one. It's one of those things where I feel like I need to live with it for a while. I know you had mentioned it. I agree that darkening the background around might help in establishing values. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me on that. I do need to, at some point, start establishing that background pretty soon. At least around what I've already done, so that I get an understanding of exactly where I'm at with this tiger. Because, I mean, from looking at my reference, I know the one place it needs to go. Maybe not darker, if I wanted to make it like the reference, but more blue. More blue than anything. That needs to be cooled off a lot. As far as oil painting is concerned, with a lot of the areas that I'm working on, the one thing that I would like to get in the habit of doing is not mixing my paint so much on the palette. I feel that there's so much more interest that could be had within my artwork if I just minimally mix. There's so many like subtle things that can be done with just the brush alone. I mean, if you think about, going through the digital aspects of this, we pick all those different brushes, and we've even made brushes that have different textures within the brush and also different colors that kind of randomly happen. So I'm gonna make an effort to do that. To have, separate colors in my brush at the same time. And then when I put them down on the canvas, see how they react. It kind of speaks to, picking the right brush for the job. A brush that would help you out. I mean, digitally, it's kind of like we go to that naturally. The first thing that I did digitally, and I think most people do, that's why many people have, brush packs out there, is you look for the brush that feels right for you. That it's like, oh, this is good for drawing, this is good for this is good for that. And that's definitely something that should be part of your oil painting process. I mean, I'm using a very small exact brush here that I can get very tight lines with for what I'm doing now. But when I move over to this background, I'm going to try and find a brush, one of my older Monarch brushes that are completely splayed and doesn't have any sharp edges to it, because this is going to be a very blurry background. If I can pick a brush that will help with that, that's what I'm going to do. It's kind of like with woodworking or with sculpture. Which tool is going to be best for this job? So it requires that you define the job, like what you want to do, what do I want to accomplish, which is awesome. What do I want to accomplish for this one area? And then the next thing is picking out the tools that would help you with that. Such as, I need a very sharp brush. I need a medium that will allow me to create really long strokes. A synthetic brush versus a non-synthetic brush, like a real hairbrush, a maybe something closer to like a soft mongoose versus a hog's hair. There's all these choices that you can make. And I think, if you're beginning, you're just focusing on, trying to draw better and mix paint better. I think you can leave what I'm talking about for later. These are like little subtle things that can come in at the end, honestly. There's foundational ideas with art. And just like when you build a building, if your foundation is not sound, the rest of the building won't be sound. If your foundation can't support the structure you want to put on top, it's going to fall down. It's going to fall apart. The building will not look right. It'll bend and break and fall, or it'll lean over like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And the foundations here is, if you stick with just the mechanical ideas of things, remove composition, basically. Drawing, form, perspective, value. Drawing, form, perspective, value. And perspective and form are kind of connected together, but those three really, that's your foundation. And you could even put those in order somewhat, because they kind of play on each other as well. I don't think you can really separate drawing from form or perspective. But value you can. Values kind of comes a bit later. But it is a foundation. And remember, like, it's a part of color. It's a part of the aspects of color. That's why you see, ateliers, they start students in charcoal. Some form of charcoal where it's just, and it doesn't have to be charcoal. I mean, it's gotta be just black and white on paper, basically. Keep it inexpensive, keep it easy to get to. Black and white, drawing and value, form, perspective. And the reason for that is because, teachers know, many teachers know, that in order to get better at it, you just have to do a whole bunch of it. Gaining that understanding just takes time and practice. To get specific on this, a little bit more specific, if there's, it's already 5:30. If there's something that you know that you need to get better at, See if you can take an iterative approach to it. Need more tea. Loosen up my tongue. What do I mean by an iterative approach? Well, what I'm doing now is not an iterative approach. If I was trying to draw or improve my drawing or perspective or form, I would not start a long-term painting. Because there's so many different aspects of art that this painting takes on. I'm not focusing on the what I need to practice most. So an iterative approach would be something like, I want to improve my drawing skills with portraits. So you make it so you can iterate through it really quickly. Instead of doing one big portrait painting, you say, I'm not going to do a painting at all. What I'm going to do is a drawing, and it's not going to be a big drawing. Let's keep it small, and let's see how fast we can iterate. So maybe you do portraits that take 5 or 10 minutes. Just quick portraits. Very small, maybe, 5 inches by 5 inches, or smaller than that. And you're focusing on the shape of the head and how the features fit on the head, right? You do one, and then right next to it, you go right to the other. But before you do that, you say, okay, what can I improve from the last one? What is the biggest issues with the last one that I just did? And then instead of doing a brand new different head, like you go to a different photo or whatever you're working from, you stick with the same photo and you do it again. And then your most important thing to do is to improve upon your previous one with the knowledge that you gained. So this is the proven strategy by Anders Ericsson for expertise, and it's called purposeful practice. And there's some aspects of purposeful practice that's really important. The most important is feedback, like a consistent feedback loop. Too often we take forever to improve because we just randomly do things in art. Mostly we do what we feel like. But to improve really fast, you have to kind of put that aside for a bit, for the bigger kind of picture of things. I mean, for the most, you'll be doing what you like anyways, because you'll be getting better at it. So, if you want to get better at portraits, you don't start drawing cars, right? Because you think you should draw cars because Scott Robinson said so. No, you use the principles for purposeful practice and you draw portraits. But you see how you can tighten that loop so you get constant practice, like really quick iterations and consistent feedback. That is the absolute fastest way to improve on anything. And it kind of goes back to Henry Ford and the assembly line. And I know that's not very romantic for a lot of artists. They want to have, many artists want to have this kind of romantic notion. And honestly, I think that's super important because feeling and emotion is huge. But in order to get there, we have to be able to have those foundations down so that we can, describe the crying child or the laughing mother or something accurately so that you communicate those emotions, So it goes hand in hand. Hopefully that helped out. I really need to do a video on Peak by Anders Ericsson. I think the book is essential for any creator out there that wants to get better at their craft. This is a person that did decades of research and to find what makes people excel. The exact ingredients and the order that they need to be in for creative individuals to improve fast. I need to review it not only to help out everybody else, but as a good review for myself, kind of come back to that and go, okay, what do I need to improve upon? And then tackle it. Get into that purposeful practice. I've been messing with these hairs for way too long here. See, this is not a painting that will help you improve. It looks great. I really enjoy this painting. I mean, well, I take that back. It will help me improve in certain ways. So if my purpose on this painting is to, like, I want to improve painting hair, I'm definitely doing it here, But this is not going to be a painting that will help me improve, my drawing, because we did, the amount of time I actually just spent on drawing this painting was minimal so far. And this is where you focus on specifics and say, okay, I'm going to work on this for a while. Smaller paintings, quick feedback, iterations. Really important. Okay. I'm noticing that my light brush that I use is not able to get the sharp lines that I want, so I'm going to switch my dark brush over to a light brush because I'm able to get really sharp lines with it. And I want a few really sharp hairs here. That's another thing as far as brushes are concerned. If you want to get really sharp lines, don't pick an old brush. Okay, maybe I'm going to stand back real quick, see what we got. And then end up the stream unless there's something really big that I need to change. Yeah, I'm really happy with the ears, with the forehead, with the eyes. Just need to expand out a little bit, but I think, well, I don't think. I know what I'm going to do on the next stream. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is work on the background a bit. I'm going to focus on changing the hue of the background to a much cooler color. And keep it close, well, right next to the head of the tiger. So these will be finishing strokes on the background. And we'll talk about how to keep the variation back there as much as we can. What we want to avoid with that is a halo around the tiger's head. I've seen, you know, at galleries and things all the time, even paintings in museums, I've seen this all the time, where you see that the artist has switched over to the background behind the subject, and they've worked so hard on the subject that they don't want to mess up, you know, anything on the edges, so they carefully go in on the background. They're making all these color changes within like a 1/4 inch or an inch around, you know, this guy or whatever it is, and you get this halo effect happening, and it really stops the separation between the foreground and background. It all becomes on, you know, on the same plane. So we want to try and avoid that. So I'll show you some tactics that you can use so you can work on foreground and background together, yet blend them in such a way that it doesn't look like this kind of halo thing that's happening. It's pretty simple and easy to do. But I'll show you that. There'll be some oiling out that happens there. Yeah, that's what we're going to do tomorrow. So thanks, guys, for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.